Against the mic. Turn the mic on. It's a Friday, and it's Anytime with Ken and Alden. I'm Ken Knapsack. You might remember me for those times I used to make fun of movie news stories, and then got tired of that. That's Alden Diaz. Hi, Alden.
Are you?
What do they remember you from?
Are you the very first Star Wars trivia champion? Or that same Ken Knapsack?
Technically.
Wow, is that from the old internet?
The old internet, of which I am a part of forever.
Crazy.
Not
I
part
watched
of the new internet.
the old internet, and I don't even know if I'm a part of the new one. I think
You're a bridge. You're a bridge.
Yeah, like
you're a transition.
I was too like emotionally like the old internet, but too young to be a part of it. And now I hate the young internet, even though they are mostly my peers.
Yeah. Okay.
Here we are.
I like that. That's why we're friends. You have the right amount of curmudgeon in you.
It's true, and you have the right amount of being open to new things, and you like my favorite part of our dynamic is that I keep my ear to the ground for like new music, particularly like music that young queer women would listen to. And then once I've given it the once over, then I'm like, I can send this to Ken.
Let's give it to the oldest mostly straight white guy there is around. What was you know what? You know what's funny? What was the last band you recommended to me? I gotta look in my
Lucia and the good the nice guy, the good boys. What are they called?
I'm going down my list here. Lucia and the Best Boys. There you go.
The Best Boys. They're the nice guys. The Best Boys. Yeah.
There used to be there used to be a show like on whatever, like what the show Drake was on that network, Canadian based. Do you remember what's that network they used to be on? What was it?
Drake? Degrassi?
Degrassi.
Yeah.
And there was that, and there was another show on there called like the Best Years, and this character Samantha Best, and my ex used to watch it, and I used to just sing this fake theme song called "The Best Years," thinking about the best years. That's what that band title reminds me of, and I can't get out of my head.
Canada's, their TV relationship with us is really interesting, and
especially now.
Liv is in the chat. Liv is Canadian. So Liv can maybe attest to this. There was a show that Canada made and produced and distributed here in the States that was on Disney Channel when I was a kid called Life with Derek. Any Life with Derek fans in the chat? And Life with Derek, there was always like these rumblings that like, and this could be urban legend, but there was rumblings that there was too much, like everyone was perceiving that there was too much sexual chemistry between the brother and the sister on the show who were step siblings in the story.
Yeah. Okay.
So everybody was kind of like, it's a little too flirtatious for what we're trying to get across here in Life with Derek.
Okay. I love that. Everyone Google The Best Years, ran for 2 or 3 seasons. Charity Shea played Samantha Best. I've seen almost every episode of that show just by.
Oh my God. Live with another. They got together in real life.
The tension was real.
Oh, if you're playing
tension was real.
And that's not these aren't step siblings, but they're adoptive. And Dexter, that Michael C. Hall got with, I forget her name.
His
great actress.
On-screen sister.
Yeah, he got with her for a while and everything. And I know that Mark Hamill said that him and Carrie like made out once and then immediately were like, nah, that's not happening.
Yeah. And she had she had those googly eyes for Harrison in the most awkward of troubling ways.
Yeah. Oh man. Starting off with siblings that have gotten together. Everybody put them in the chat.
Hey now. Absolutely. So we're here on a Friday, and it is we have some things to talk about. We're going to talk a lot about probably the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary weekend, which was last weekend. First of all, can you help me on this thumbnail? And for the audio listeners, I apologize. Put a thumbnail up. Martin Short, Paul McCartney, Sir Paul McCartney, Lorne Michaels, Emma Stone, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Maya Rudolph, old pal Kristen Wiig, Eddie Murphy. Who the hell's the goatee guy?
The goatee guy with the glasses? I have no idea. I had the same thought process.
For a week, I've been staring at that going, who, what, where?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if maybe it was a current producer or something, which I guess it could be. I know Lauren has lots of, obviously, other writers. I know he's not the head writer because that guy's not in the writing doc that they released. So not
the head
100%
writer. For
the
who
head
is the head?
writer it was Jost for a while, but it's this other guy. He talks a lot in the writing episode.
Oh,
yeah,
Streeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. And then Kent Sublette, another old groundling pal of mine, is like the head right. Like he's like he used to be the head writer. Now he's got it. Okay. Anyways,
so we figured that out. So we're here to talk about the things that we love getting old, and the reason for that is because we love to share our producing process with the audience on the show. Things are really bad right now, everyone. I don't know if you noticed. Things kind of suck. We surrendered the Cold War retroactively, so we're losers now. We decided to piss all over the Ukraine after supporting them for the last couple of years. And threw them under the bus and have tried to brand the only true boots on the ground, brave world leader as a dictator. We did that. That's America. We're pissing off Canada to the point where the boycotts have taken full hold and they're booing us, which we deserve. It's bleak as hell. I knew, much like last week, that coming into this show, there was a very real chance that I just was angry and ranted and everything, because that's all I feel like doing. And the things that I think will happen and maybe should are things I can't say on YouTube for fear of demonetization and everything. Like, this is a real version of I can't say that, not a hacky comic version. I literally can't say that I think certain people might need to go a certain way.
Right.
Just historically speaking. I mean, got Steve Bannon out there, just adding more clarity to the fact that these are indeed Nazis. Or so yeah, we're all over the place.
No, sorry, I cut you off. And I'm slightly Ken Bloom says, I'm pretty sure it's Paul Thomas Anderson, my husband. Yeah, I know they're married, but
it's not PTA. No,
I'm a big PTA fan. I don't know who that is. I want to figure it out. Anyways, by the end of the show, we're going to figure this out. And one of the things, look, it's okay. We keep saying it's okay to put. Last week we had a foot off the gas episode. This isn't about that this week, and I'm not in a cynical headspace. I am just in a finding my footing right now. 32 days in, as Matthew Stokes just said, of what's the right way forward? Where are we keep saying the pinpricks of light, but what are the, hey, can we highlight this thing to help? Not just simply good news, but maybe you go here. Maybe it's a resist bot thing and everything, but it's a little overwhelming. Not everything, I've signed a few resist bots last week, and everything I resisted happened, and it's like easy to do that. Protests, taking the street, those that kind of things are coming, I think, in a grander way. They're also tremendously dangerous. As a public safety director, I have don't go to large uncontrolled crowds, man. That is where bad things start to happen. I have to maybe get over that. There's a Tesla spot near me. I might go stand out in front of it too. But point being, on the show, what I think you and I are trying to, or at least what I'm trying to say, is like, this is another week of, let's just talk about Twinkies. Let's talk about the culture and the world and get into it too. And I think that's a way in which I always try to, I'll say, change things without trying to be melodramatic or hyperbolic or put my hand on my heart. But just like the conversations around these things can change minds. I really think talking about Star Wars like we do on Force Center sometimes can affect minds more than just screaming about what's going on, though it's valuable to scream about what's going on. That's where I'm sharing, Alden, my headspace going into this episode, as we talk about something light and fluffy, Saturday Night Live, but also something that's affected our culture, something that is both political and non-political. We're going to talk about that. And that's just kind of where I'm at coming in. Where are you?
Yeah. And I want to echo some of that too, and marry it with the rage. Like I wrote on Blue Sky, in our Blue Sky posts for the episode. Follow us on Blue Sky anytime on air. This is sort of like escaping into a cultural conversation, but the way that we like to do things. And I said this to you even in our off-air conversations, our text messages, that because it's us, an arts conversation will also, tackle some of the themes that we are feeling right now in the time. Like, because it's us, it will be about change, which has been a theme of any time since we started the show. I think that I said this to some other friends the other night, and I mean it. Like, the SNL 50 is the only thing that has given me joy all week, outside of the obvious, like my dog. So it's like him, Hall of Fame choice. Like, he's always going to be the thing that makes me the happiest. But like after that, SNL 50. So we'll discuss that. And if anybody watching, this will be the this is still accessible sort of like disclaimer. Like, this is not going to be like nitty gritty reviewing the special. You don't need to be an SNL fan. You don't even need to have watched. We're using it as our jumping point for art, or change.
I'm laughing, and if Ken Bloom's still in chat, he knows why I'm laughing. When you talk about a minute by minute breakdown of the 50th special, there's a YouTube channel that I was watching. That has some good stuff on it. I was watching them do that for hours, and I couldn't stop watching. And it was just like, it was kind of so bad. Like, okay, and then they said this. And then I hate that kind of shit.
First of all, it's too long to do that with. And, we'll talk about, we'll hit some favorite moments, but we want to talk about how the stuff that you love not just gets old, but changes, meets the moment, gets changed by outside factors. Right now is actually a great time to hit this in terms of film as well. You look at something like James Bond. Cataclysmic change for James Bond just happened yesterday. With Barbara Broccoli stepping back, they got this $1 billion payout. Now James Bond is controlled, it's not an exaggeration to say, by a real life Bond villain and Jeffrey Bezos. So there's a lot that's happening. Obviously, Star Wars will come up, all these things of Indiana Jones and whatever, all the stuff that we love. But feel free in the chat to share your own positives and negatives about change, about the bands that you like changing as they have hit later years, as the shows that have come and gone. Like, we're gonna hit all that because it matters. It matters politically, it matters socially. And again, to stress, just as the end of the table setting, we are paying attention to everything that's going on, and we will get into it. I mean, like, we will get into it in future episodes as much as we can. I'm working on lining up some guests, particularly one guest from Canada that I mentioned to Ken off air, who is a Canadian patriot, but has great politics, and she's really cool. And I want her to come on and talk about like legitimate fear that they are feeling up there, that no one down here is talking about because we're busy dealing with fucking Chainsaw McGee over here, just like, and the Democrats who are like, this is the Democratic strategy for everything. They attack Zelensky, and then the Democrats all tweet, Zelensky is a hero, and that's all we get from them. So it's just like, no, it's gonna have to be us.
We also get a book signing from Hakeem Jeffries. So
don't even get me started. Don't even get me started on Hakeem.
A side note, I will say, Cory Booker at least is introducing some amendments that he was posting about him. I was like, okay, at least that's something. He's not at a book signing. He's not at a book signing.
Let's start work. Yeah, and again, credit where credit's due. Stuff like that. Jasmine Crockett giving me life every time she opens her mouth.
I've been a big fan.
The fact that she was just like, please understand that these are idiots. I was like,
she just, it's the perfect energy. I try not to unilaterally love politicians.
We don't want to be fans of them.
They're humans. But her, what's the one I was talking about? Mallory, Megan, is it Megan Mallory from Michigan? I
believe so. Yeah,
on the stateside. Yeah, she's great as well. I'm with you on that. And one of the things for me is I use terms come to mind, Alden, that I used to be smarter when I was younger. I don't know many words anymore, but like I get the term the bubble, or preaching to the choir, that kind of stuff. I don't think that's necessarily what we're doing here, but because we do have smaller numbers, and because all my shows kind of have that kind of nice warm community around them, sometimes I do feel as though raging is good and healthy, and this is a safe place to do it. But how best do I move forward to in just the things I talk about? And this is part of that. To circle back to what I was saying at the beginning, that's kind of where I really appreciate what you were you're riding along with me here on how to go forward.
Man. Yeah, for sure. And that's what we sort of came around to, is that you were talking about the audience and talking about how these are people, everybody watching right now, who all of whom should like this video and share it and do all that good stuff. I always forget to say that. Please do it. You all get it, right? There's not a single person watching these episodes consistently live, or the few hundred that come back to it every week after the fact. Or even when we had that one episode that took off after, there wasn't really any blowback. That was definitely people that agreed with us. Like, you all get what we're saying. You know that these are horrible times. You know that this is unfettered fascism in the United States. You know that we're in a crisis. Like, all these things we don't need to tell you. And I don't want to be like, guys, it's horrible. Like, it's just, you can hit me up if you want that. Just text me. Message
just
me.
text Alden.
In fact, you know what though? Don't do that, because I realized today that too many people have access to me. I don't know if you've ever had that thought, but yeah,
I know. I sometimes it's good. I gotta talk for a second. By the way, we have maybe a shorter show today because I have electrical work being done on the house. So pretty soon, all this will just shut off. I'm texting the maintenance guy to just make sure I got an hour. So
indeed,
talk amongst yourself.
Yeah. So it's just like, that's the vibe. I mean, everything's horrible. You can always ask a question. You can always, and you don't need to super chat, although it is appreciated if you want to. We'll make sure we get to those, of course. If you want to ask a question about anything that's going on in the world, ask if we saw something, ask about our thoughts on something. That is also a way to get these things in. You know, if there's something that you are particularly concerned about, feel free to voice that here, but also to talk about anything that we are going to be discussing in the main topic about art, and about how it changes and everything, because we had Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary, which has been the whole season, but because it was 75, you know, they waited until they actually crossed into 2025 to do the 50th. And we're, you know, it had a lot of hype going into it. And I will say my opening positive thought, outside of just like, I love the special, because it's like, if you follow me, you know I love the special. But the whole treatment of the 50th, from the 4-part docuseries, which is really 4 individual documentaries, so you're getting a lot there, a lot of bang for your buck on that.
That's great.
The music documentary, which was incredible. The homecoming from Radio City, the social media presence, the physical marketing in New York City. Like, I think that we have hit a new gold standard for like franchise anniversaries. And it's like, you know, Disney's Disney, and like, you know, we all have our favorite thing, but like 2027, I better see this level of dedication and love for the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, because this really was like, for a non, and we'll talk about Lorne Michaels particularly as we go on, for a non-emotive, reserved, sort of like always in character man. Yeah, him and his team, this was sentimentality in the best way, top to bottom, nonstop love fest. So much money was spent, so much planning, and all of it really came together. So when we finally got the 50th special itself, it really felt like not just the 50th anniversary of this, but like we'd been building to it throughout the last couple months.
Yeah, I felt it was bigger than the other ones by far, and the 40th was pretty big. Though, side note, I watched the clip of the Q&A session from the 40th anniversary, which Seinfeld was the anchor on, and none of that stood up to the test of time.
No,
it was
no. There's the Palin bit,
the Sarah Palin. Should I pick Trump to run with me bit? Ooh. Oof.
Yeah. The 40th versus 50th thing is interesting, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I liked the 40th a lot when it happened, and I liked the 40th looking back on it. I thought it was pretty good. But the thing that I noticed is that the 40th anniversary special, and part of this is that another decade has gone by, and so new nostalgia has been baked in for the era I came up on. So there's obviously that bias, like Fred Armisen and Kristen Wiig and Hader and McKinnon and like all those people now have a little bit of extra oomph when they show up, versus then it was like, well, we just saw you, or you're still here. So it's like,
or you're still here,
you know,
Keenan.
So that's different. Keenan. But this one felt like they achieved a generational balance that the 40th didn't really achieve. Not that they failed at anything, but the focus felt different. Like the 40th, you had stuff like, we're going to do Wayne's World, but Wayne's World just existed on its own, and it was just Wayne's World, and that was, you know, Myers and Dana, their time to shine, and that's great. But this time, it seemed like there was a concerted effort to blend old and new for 3 hours. So Mike Myers brings back Coffee Talk, Linda Richmond character, but he brings it back with Amy Poehler and Maya Rudolph. So they combine that all together. Or the way that you had Mulaney's big musical that combines every era, celebrity cameos, Broadway references. Like I feel like the monologue started like the tone. The monologue was sort of like the tone setter, because you had Steve Martin starting it and anchoring the whole thing, but then John Mulaney joins them, you know, and they do a bit together. And I think that was like the spirit of the entire show was, can we marry this in a way that makes a lot of sense, while also making it a point several times to give a beautiful, like, loving tribute to the original cast. Like, even though Jane and Chevy didn't do sketches, they were there. They showed the short film with Belushi. You know, Lorraine Newman had that hilarious digital short with Pete Davidson. It felt like this was less like the 40th was, and again, I don't want to shit on the 40th because it was fun, but like the 40th was very much like, hey, you remember this, and like, let's just only talk about old. And this was like, well, no, like the whole, like there are whole new adults that have come around since the 40th, or people that have looked back, and
or
people that have died
since the first year. Since the first
and
year.
also it's kind of like, and I don't want to get morbid with it, but this is part of our things getting old. You're not gonna have a 60th anniversary with a lot of the people in that room.
No,
you know,
absolutely
you're not. And so it's like, for Bill Murray to come out and do Update, it's like, you know, I hope we have Bill in 10 years, you know, great. But like, for him to do that felt really like we're looping everything together. Like, all the bits were about the whole of it.
Yeah. This to me was a little bit of a goodbye, not in the sense I think the show's going to go. I think it will go on, whether it should or not. That's a different discussion. Who should take it over? Speedy, clearly, as they've the sound guy. But yeah, I think in a way this was a chance to, whether conscious or not, to really look back and say, this is what we did. Like, to have Lauren almost show emotion was a big thing. And I think that was kind of felt all the way through it, versus the other ones, which were fun. I mean, look, the 15th was great. That was my first like kind of live episode that I watched as a junior hire, and like it felt special, big, and that was only 15 years. Which is crazy to think. And 25, I barely remember the 25th. 20th, of course, got canceled. The 40th, I do remember, and a lot of, but this felt bigger. Going back to your comment, I really do. I agree with you. The side conversation that I want a Lucasfilm 50th month. I don't know. I just don't want Swagman to post something on Instagram for the 50th. I want this. I want Star Wars to reach this level. I think it deserves it, because it's not just, we're not just celebrating the pop culture fluff. Star Wars influenced generations. Saturday Night Live, better or worse, influenced generations, and I think you got that feel from it there, and it was fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it all the way through. Some things here and there, I kept texting you going, and this Domingo character's popular. It's popular.
Because you saw the Domingo bit, and then I said something like, "Oh, because it's cool that they were in a Domingo sketch." And you were like, "Oh, that's recurring." Oh, okay.
Yeah,
this is like, not just a thing they came up with tonight.
They think they should do more of these. Oh, okay, all right.
I think that was Domingo 4 and potentially the end. That was the end.
Bobby. Here's the one thing I'll say. This is my only negative towards, and this isn't just recency. Like, it's not a recency thing. It's not an old man thing. The one thing I think that's lacking with current cast is explosiveness, and like Kate McKinnon, Will Ferrell, Bill Murray, Leslie Jones, Belushi, Aykroyd. Aykroyd was dangerous. Aykroyd was a dangerous human, more than Belushi in terms of comedy. And I wish some of the newer people had that oomph behind it. They might never. It's just a change game. That's the energy I felt with the Domingo sketch. For the other ones, I was like, oh yeah, this is how you come to play. But that's the only thing. That was the reason I texted you.
And was like, what's funny is that, like, to your point, the Domingo sketches I think have been fine. Like, they're very much like, the premise of the Domingo sketches isn't this guy being a, you know, machismo papi chulo type character.
Right.
Isn't that silly while we parody a popular song from right now? Like, that's the basis of it, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why this one I thought had more was because of what you're saying. Because Molly Shannon comes in.
Yes.
And she is like just grinding on Bad Bunny and going crazy. Like, and that was the spirit of the whole weekend. Like, Molly Shannon and Anna Gasteyer could be cast members right now because they stole the weekend. I mean, they were on fire.
You know me, looking at the we're in the era of the guest stars, and that's it is what it is. It's not bad, it's not good. But when the season started, and you were like, oh yeah, Carvey's pretty much there every week. Sandberg's I was like, just add him to the cast. Let's just. This isn't sports where it's harder to come back, and you file retirement paperwork at the NFL. Like, just I want to hear Daryl Hammond say, and Dana Carvey. Like, let's do it. Let's have a 50th season with just all-star cast members. Let's do this every week.
Yeah, and there was, of course, a few people that couldn't make it. That, to your point, I would like it if the rest of the 50th season maybe used them as hosts or one-offs. Aykroyd couldn't make it because of schedule. Put Aykroyd in a sketch before the 50th season's over. Dana Carvey had the flu. There was a few other people. Bill Hader. It's not confirmed, but like it's known that he is with the very, very, very pregnant Ali Wong right now. So there's those little things. So it's just all of that I think is like sort of the overall reaction, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, breaking news. Dylan Barry, the Dylan Barry Network. Check out the network there. The thumbnail guy that I do believe is Eric Kenward, one of the longest tenured writers currently on the show. Thank you. Okay.
Good to know.
I can sleep finally. Because it was
that was
I was like, I know that's not Macaulay Culkin, but it kind of looks like older Macaulay Culkin. Yeah. Anyways, fun vibes overall. The weekend was great. The music concert is still the music doc was still the highlight for me. The concert was good. Some awkward vibes, not awkward vibes in the sense of like I'm one of those Beatle guys. I am absolutely one of those Beatle guys. I am thankful that we still have Paul McCartney to go out there. I love the Golden Slumbers medley. One of my favorite things the Beatles have ever done. I loved hearing it. It is kind of what we're talking about. To McCartney. Man, he makes do, but it's tough. It was a little tough to watch Paul Simon, one of my all-time favorites. There goes Ryman Simon, and so I had a lot of that going on too, where you're just
it's like
and saying goodbye in a way, like you said.
I feel you on that, and it's like I think we all have that fear going into any of these situations of. We're going to bring up Star Wars a bunch in this, so just like buckle up for a backdoor Star Wars conversation as well.
Buckle up, pirates.
I remember that being a thing, when the original trio we knew they were coming back for a new trilogy. I remember having those feelings of like, ooh, is this going to be like, not that any of them were as old as McCartney or Paul Simon, or not that any of them were in rough shape, but I just remember thinking like, will this feel, and we have this as wrestling fans a lot, will this feel like, oh, I can't go, and I'm hoping that the attire and the entrance and everything will carry me to some of the nostalgia that we, wrestling is a big part of both of our lives, and that's unfortunately more often than not the case with our legends. For a legend to say, I'm calling it a career at my peak, it just never really happens. Shawn Michaels is really the only one, and then he fucked it with a Saudi tag match. So it's like we had it and then it went away. So I had, with like Paul Simon, like, but again, I think that's good producing, right? Because like you put him with one of the biggest pop stars in the world right now.
Yeah, no, it worked.
Who makes a joke about her parents not even being born, like little things like that.
Which is great.
She's funny, man. I've really come around to like her the more that she does silly stuff, that I realized like, oh, you're of a different time. Like you would have succeeded in the variety show 70s, 60s, 70s era.
She's the Anne Margaret of our day.
Yeah, which I'm sure was her goal when she wrote Espresso. So I thought that there was a little bit of that throughout, of like every single time an older player came up and was a little bit shaky, particularly with music, like David Byrne at the concert. Like David Byrne's still the man, but like he's not hitting those Talking Heads dance moves because he just can't. Some of it is reckoning with reality, but man, on the flip, when an older performer, music or comedy or both, in the case of Sandler, both, when they hit, it felt so good. Eddie Murphy on fire. Will Ferrell on fire. Sandler's song, fantastic. Like it was a really good showing for people that still got it.
And let's not forget Cher. Cher on the concert.
Cher. crazy good. She still sounds amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
fantastic. I loved that.
Yeah.
And then it presented us opportunities. Like I described it in my Letterbox review, because you can review specials on Letterbox. As this was kind of like Saturday Night Live Endgame. Like it felt like you said, like a goodbye, even though it's not going away. Like it did feel like the Avengers assembling, and in the same way that we got like, your superheroes finally meet each other and team up. Like I realized watching, and then I fact checked this, like there had never been an Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell moment ever on the show. They never crossed, and Eddie didn't return for a long time, and he didn't return during Will's era. Like, so you get Will Ferrell and Eddie Murphy for the first time in a sketch created by Kenan. That's one of his first like bits that really took off with Scared Straight. And you end up with this tri-generational thing. And even some newer players and everything. Like every single person that currently works there was on screen that night at least once, even the young featured people. Like
Smart.
It felt like there was a really good generational exchange that we talk about here on this show happening, even with really silly stuff. Like it's already been mentioned here in the comments, but like having Tracy Morgan play someone else while Eddie plays him next to him is such a smart way of like the 80s acknowledging the 90s and 2000s, but we're also doing some bits that are from now. Different firsts, like Meryl Streep's first time ever on SNL, ever doing something, and everybody's like, what got Meryl Streep to do SNL? That's the power of dating someone funny. That's what a silly, goofy man like Martin Short will do. He will get his multi-hyphenate girlfriend Meryl Streep to do things. I don't know if he calls her his girlfriend since he's in his 70s, but
I agree with that. No, all wonderful, man. All wonderful takes from it, and how did you're an older soul without a doubt,
Sure.
but you're still a younger man. But you're at the era where Force Awakens is 10 years. Our title is when the things you love, things you love are old, or whatever we put down for the title. I can't remember today. How are you dealing with the advancement of time as it measures up against the pop culture you love? Are you having these moments of whoa? Because it's slightly different because you already signed up when Harrison was well beyond middle age. You already signed, but some of that stuff aside. But watching McKinnon come back, I think she's one of the top 5 funniest people on that show ever. And I'm not saying in terms of like ranking. I think she does her style. It's a little not as versatile at times for me versus other sketch players like a Hartman, but she herself, I think, she shows up, she's going to make you laugh. Quite frankly, Rachel Dratch is in that category too, and got to prove it again here. This good special. But McKinnon is no longer the fresh face. She's not on the show, but you probably came up with her on the show. You probably came up with her as an emerging legend. How do you relate to that kind of thing? It's not necessarily just to her, but to the overall idea of it's advancing.
It's weird. It's really weird and sometimes unnerving, whether it's, a comedy, whether it's SNL. Like I still think sometimes of McKinnon and Mulaney and Armisen as Mulaney and Armisen were maybe like one class before her, but like still the same age group. But like I still think of these comedians who are now all at least 40 years old as like current and new, and they're not. And that's
the thing. So it's so funny on my show, Pop Rock and Radio this week. I'm doing I do every once in a while, I'll do years. I've done 1971, 1985. I'm doing 1995. Always make the jokes. I'm not only a 90s kid, I started my radio career in 1995. So these are the songs that are in my soul. And I put together a great list, but I was like, oh shit, these are 30 years old. And I always make the joke, but it's true, that I consider the Foo Fighters and Garbage new bands. That's a little bit of a joke, but it's also true. It's also true
in your mind as new. Yeah, no, totally.
So like what you're describing, like, oh, Kate McKinnon just got here. she did not. Yeah,
and she's been gone for quite a bit already. She's done several films. She's been in other shows. Like it has gone on already, and I think that's the thing that you have to sort of like get used to with anything is acknowledging the different eras. Like Heidi Gardner, who I think is underrated. and has quietly become one of the veterans. She's 8 seasons, and so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
I think she's 40 now, right? Age
yeah,
is just a number, but yeah, she's been around a long time now. Yeah, absolutely.
and then Sandler's song, which I do want to spotlight because it hit
Yeah,
both of us so
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Sandler's song, I think, did a great job of speaking to what you're describing,
Hmm.
because the most emotional part is just rhyming people's names and telling you how long they were on the show. But hearing some of those really fucking threw me. Like Michael Che, 11 years. But then
Hmm.
you look at someone like Gilda, and all of the originals only
5,
5.
5. Yeah.
And some of them only, like Billy Crystal, only 1, Michael McKean
Hmm.
only 2. All of those things, like you start to Eddie Murphy 4. So
Hmm.
it's just like
And,
it feels like
quite frankly, like 2.5, really, really.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
feels like when you look at the legend, like Eddie Murphy, he must have been on that show for 10 years. Like,
Mm.
no. And it doesn't always equate that way. And so the time is weird, and the way, it affects us in other areas of like not perceiving it because people are so eternal and they're always in your face. Like I'm gonna meet Oscar Isaac at that celebration in April, right? Nikki and I are gonna go meet him.
Mm.
And when he got announced, I was like, oh, this is crazy, Oscar Isaac, and there's all this behind the scenes stuff, whatever. But then it hit me after my excitement. Oh, he's going for an anniversary panel. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
could
yeah.
he be there? And then I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, because it's a
Yeah.
$2 billion film's 10 year. That's
Yeah.
why he's gonna be
Yeah.
there. And if
Yeah.
anything else, that's gravy. But like, it's so
Yeah. Yeah.
strange to me that that guy did stuff that was 10 years ago. And look, I don't wanna come off like I'm pushing or promoting Harry Potter, but just for the point that I'm making, uh,
Mm.
this weekend, Regal, and maybe this whole month, they're showing some of the films. And I was telling Nikki Kumar via text, it freaks me out that Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and Rupert Grant can say, I was in big films 20 years ago.
Mhm.
That's it's the
Mhm.
verbiage. It's the way that you frame it. And like you
Yeah.
said, I was already like that 1995 when Foo Fighters was a new band, and you were
Mm.
you were spinning the latest Foo Fighter tracks
Mhm.
before Sports and Weather. I was born that year. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like Foo Fighters to me has always existed.
They've always existed. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've said this before, so I was there when they got implemented into Classic at
Yeah.
iHeart, and how much pushback that got, or Linkin Park got implemented into
Yeah.
Classic. I got texts from you when Linkin Park returned last year where you were like, "Oh, you guys, this is a big band for you guys? Like, you guys,
Yeah.
this is
Like
important."
we all we all determined this wasn't good, but you like it? And the Domingo sketch? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Linkin Park, yeah. Like, I remember telling Ken, for those of you who are probably shocked by this is not a Ken thing. This is a reaction that I've gotten from lots of people
Yeah.
that are above the age of 40. Everyone I worked with in radio has a story of like, we thought it was shit and we had to put it on anyway. Like,
Yeah.
like
Oh God, yeah.
things like that are
But
really crazy.
it's very generational. It's very much like when I think of that genre of music, whatever you want to put Linkin Park into, I think of, well, there went the fun stuff, there went the good stuff. The new stuff came in, which is a bad trait.
Yeah.
We want to analyze that there because I'm part of the generation that had music, and all the people from the 80s went, oh dear God, this alternative stuff here. Now the fun of the 80s is gone. It just keeps repeating, but it's funny when it comes up like that.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of the troubles that come with this emotionally, to get a little like more heady about it, when you're asking me like,
Mm.
how do I feel as things age? Like, I've had fun little moments. I've mentioned this before on Star Wars podcasts and various guest spots and things, but like, I remember early 2020 playing Battlefront 2 in my room, and my nephew saw me playing as Return of the Jedi Luke, black clad, green saber. Surely we all understand that this is how Luke Skywalker looks. And he said, "Who's that?" And I said, "It's Luke." And he said, "No, Luke's an old man,"
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
he had just seen The Last Jedi at a drive-in with
Mm-hmm.
his mom, my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I was mortified by this moment, and
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
fun way. But like, the way that you approach it really is about openness. I think like you have to be open
yes,
to the fact that both of those things are true, and you
yes,
have to be
yes.
open to the fact that these eras change. Like the notion of Like there are certain people that I'm not gonna blast them by name just in case they ever watch this, but there are people in my family that are very much of the like, it was only good. The originals was only
Yeah.
good. They change a superhero costume, people bitch. They
Yeah.
change who's doing what in a comic or a movie, people bitch. Oh, the new James Bond is like this. Oh, it sucks. Oh, the Rings of Power. Oh, it sucks. It could never be the Jackson movies. Oh,
Mhm.
that mentality is entirely based, I think, off of fear of change and
Mhm.
having a closed mind. And not that you're
Mhm.
closed minded to real issues. Like you can have this and still be politically good.
Well, a lot of people don't see the connection. So I make my jokes at
Yeah.
Lincoln Park, but I'm no longer in that era where I will go. Well, I will say, "Well, that sucks." I just don't listen to it, right? Because I do. It's not. This is general, but yes, I think there is a very tiny middle of that Venn diagram of people who have the "not my Luke." This Trump guy seems good. And I'm not saying that it makes them Trumpers. I'm just talking about
It exists. Yeah.
it exists, but just the refusal to grow, change, adapt,
Mhm.
look at other perspectives. It does kind of connect. And I don't want anyone. I'm not again. This isn't a. You don't like Last Jedi. You're MAGA. That's not what I'm saying. But you know what I mean. There is. It happens time and time and time again. And a lot of people don't realize because I do have some very progressive friends who still have that like. Oh yeah. We all know that Star Wars ended after Empire, right? Like that kind of vibe. And for them it did, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's that thing with your nephew. It's like, no, you're right. Luke is the old guy. You're right. You're right.
And they're both
That's how
true.
you
And
see
like,
it. Yeah,
and that's,
that's your world.
to connect it to SNL, that's why we all know the truth of the matter is that the era that you first watched it is always going to be better in your mind. If the show hooked you with that
Hmm.
set of people, then their ability to hook you elevates your experience. It's not like we can go into every cast and find a hitter. Like we
Yeah,
can go into
absolutely.
every cast and find
From
an
now to then. Yep.
incredible player, at least one. Even during
Yeah.
the worst period, there were people that were like, they're so good. Like that.
Hmm.
That has
Hmm.
always been a thing. And
Always.
during the best period, there have been people that most would agree were not that good and were
Hmm.
carried by their peers.
Hmm.
That has always been a thing. And
Hmm.
and just a little bit back to the Sandler song real quick before I forget that point. The thing that I loved about the Sandler song is that he showed, I think, and has continued to show, whether it's in his latest two stand-up specials, which I think are two of his finest works, whether that's in his Chris Farley song that he brought on the road and did on SNL when he returned to host. Like
Hmm.
the thing that I think about Sandler that gets reduced to a joke a lot of the time. And I got emotional about Adam Sandler. And I texted you that during the special. I was like,
Hmm.
this guy
Hmm.
means something to me. Like he really means something to me. And in as much as like I've never met him and I don't know him, but it's like he could, and it would not be wrong to do this. He could show up whenever he wants and bring back Opera Man or bring back
Hmm.
any of his old songs. He could do Modern Lunch Lady. He could do Canteen Boy, although probably not for obvious reasons. Like he could bring back anything that he wanted to whenever he wanted to, right? He could do
Hmm.
all his movie characters and just, but he never wants to do anything except put over other people, his friends, and he gets shit on for that sometimes. Like Sandler movies are just vacations for his friends. So fucking what? If I had
Hey,
Adam Sandler money, every
that's all
fucking
I do.
movie I made would be a Ken Knapsack vacation. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand
Yeah.
why that it is so cynical for people to look at that as a bad thing. It
Yeah.
happens with Kevin Smith too. Like
Yeah.
those are movies that have aged to varying degrees of success. The
Mm-hmm.
Clerks and Chasing Amy's
Mm-hmm.
and Dogmas of all of it, but the idea of like it's bad to celebrate your friends and to make sure that they are always gainfully employed and having a good time and able to express themselves, even if I don't like all of Adam Sandler's friends, and I don't think any of us like that entire group because one or two of them, really one of them, kind of sucks. But that's not the point. The point
Yeah.
is just that like to see him go up there and just be, I want to sing about other people, I
Mm-hmm.
think is important. And that outward thinking, we can take that as fans, like, and think about other fans, whether that's sports, whether it's wrestling, comedy, SNL, Star Wars. Just
Mm-hmm.
think like, oh, I need to elevate other people's experiences too, is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I don't, if people are like, oh, I don't know if anyone has this take, but let's say for argument's sake that everybody was like, Star Wars has always sucked until Skeleton Crew. That's the first good one. That would be an insane thing to say, but like I would hope that we could say like that is just as valid an opinion as the opposite. Like I just think that part of the things we love getting old is just being realistic about the fact that it's about human connections, like at the moment in which it happens, and that because you had something or because something is old or original, it doesn't make it better. And on the flip, just because something now can look 10 times better than stuff then, that doesn't make it better. It's really weird. It's really weird that we have this like you hear that a lot, like, oh, it was everything after Empire, everything after, or sometimes Jedi, but even then they love to shit on Jedi. That has never made like logical sense to me, and it feels like sometimes, and this happens with
Kurtz.
Yeah, and it happens with comedy too. Like the groupthink takes over, like right, like and musicians too. Like, oh, we all agree that only the first few albums are good and everything else sucks, right? It's like, who the fuck said we all agree about that? Why did we all agree about it? When did I sign that? I didn't fucking sign that.
That's the pop culture zeitgeist. Yeah, what you're talking about is something I addressed on my podcast, the Monday Morning Show last week. I was really moved by the special, moved by particularly the Sandler thing. But breaking down the idea of the cast in college or high school was the favorite. That's usually true only because of the people around you. I have emotional reaction to that stuff not because of Dana Carvey or Phil Hartman performing. I have a reaction to it because a Monday morning at school, I'd sit around the lunch table with my friends and we'd reenact the sketches and we'd laugh until it was time to go back to class. That's the memories you're connecting with. I'm sorry for those on this podcast feed repeating it. But the reason I always kind of make that reference to Patrick Stewart going salt and pepper, other than it just being a great moment and the perfect person with the perfect band for him to introduce, or the perfect act for him to introduce, is because that day that it aired in February of 1994, I shot my first TV show with a bunch of friends from high school. We appeared on a local TV show called Fishmasters, and it was fun. It was great. And to celebrate, we went to a friend's house and hung out, and that show was on the air. And I remember it because of that. So for me to go, oh, the mid-'90s were my favorite cast, that might be true, more early 90s. But what's true is the memories of hanging around with those friends that night and thinking, we just shot a TV show, this could be us, and oh my God, and salt and pepper, and all of us laughing when Patrick Stewart said that. That's the memories that we carry forward, and that's the memories that we're often comparing against Domingo. And as Ken Plume just said at SNL 75, Domingo's going to get a big applause break, as it should when it returns. And I don't have those connections to those things now, and I think it's important for all of us to realize that going forward when discussing it. I've been discussing pop culture since 2011-12 in this way. And I've changed that too. My first appearance on Schmoes, when it was just a podcast in Harloff's apartment with a producer named Cheese, was shitting on the prequels for 2 episodes because that was what we did. It was fun, and I didn't have those connections. Now, though, looking back, I have the connections to my friends and I going to see it. And a friend of mine who's since died, one of the last big memories I have of him is him driving down here and us going to see The Phantom Menace. But at the time, I didn't have those connections as I did to go into the playground of Margaret Harlow Elementary School in Rio Grande, California, and talking Star Wars. So I think this special, that Sandler thing, that's what got me too. Hartman the Glue was the line that started to make me cry, but it was also Kazurinsky, it was McKeenan too, it was all those things, because I was just thinking of those era as watching those performers. And now you can put on paper a number in which they were there. You can put on paper the numbers in which they influenced your lives. But now I have a pang for those lives and that life and that time, and that's where a lot of the warm but also bittersweet feelings come in, and that's what got me about that. I think in a weird way he was acknowledging that too, that all these people shared themselves with us as an audience, and we connected to them as an audience.
Yes, and I think that's about empathy, right? Like you have empathy for your fellow fans in fandom spaces. You have empathy for your friends making TV shows in the 90s and reenacting the bits. Like you have empathy for past versions of yourself and for people that you don't know. Again, I don't know any of these people. You know a few of these people from the comedy world, but like I don't know any of these people. I've met some of them. I've crossed paths with some of them. I've said before, for the most part, comedians were always kind to me and were always really nice to me when I was working morning radio, and I've had only really good experiences with them for the most part, which is lucky because it's always a crapshoot with any famous person. But so putting aside the you can't actually know them, that way this doesn't turn into a stan culture bullshit ass conversation. It is affecting to see people acknowledge the passage of time, which is the overarching thing we're discussing, because what you're describing, the paying for those specific errors, it's good to reconnect with them in a cathartic way, because we get afraid, I think, of the passage of time, right? Like it's like
Sure.
Lorraine Newman and Jane Curtin holding up Gilda's picture is beautiful, not just because Gilda's gone, and has been gone. Gilda's been gone since before I was born. So it's like I'd never shared this planet with Gilda Radner, but her art carries and influences, the way I think about performance and the way I think about like endurance, like the clip of her showing up on TV after, going into remission, where it's her and Gary Shandling, and he's like, "Where'd you go?" And she's like, "I had cancer. What'd you have?" And he's like, "I had bad career decisions." Like things like that, like that just it's like the human spirit. And so when you look at like Lorraine and Jane doing that, I think it's not just cool because of Gilda, it's also cool because it would be easy for them to run from the passage of time. It would be easy for them to, which I think, not to shit on Chevy Chase more than he already has been by everybody. Maybe he deserves it. I don't know. But like, I think Chevy Chase has not dealt with the passage of time in a positive way. And ask anyone that works at Community, he hasn't. They had to physically fight him. Like I don't know what bigger indictment there could be than Joel McHale punching you. So it's like things like that. You can go that way. You can, and we've seen it with bitter wrestlers. We've seen it with bitter rock stars. But for them to hold that up is like, yeah, our friend's not here, and we're old ladies, and this photo's black and white. And Garrett might need some help standing, and Chevy might be a fucking asshole, and Dan's not even here, but we're here, and we like the fact that we became the grandmas of this show.
Yes, and no grandmas.
And I think that was, we've all litigated this a million times on our Star Wars programming, but I think that was kind of Mark Hamill's arc that I'm sure he regrets having in public, but he did, and we saw sort of like him expressing what I'm describing of like, oh, I don't know if I like aging this way. And there's that great moment in the Director and the Jedi doc, for those of you who haven't seen it, definitely check it out, where Ram Bergman very astutely says Mark is coming to terms with the fact that this time he's not Luke, he's Obi. And he summed it up right there, and Mark just had to catch up to it. And I think seeing older folks have that moment helps me, being 29, which is obviously not old, but it helps me be less afraid of that stuff going forward.
Hold on to it. Hold on to that lack of fear, because I don't want to sound like Yoda, but you will be. You will be. Now it's I'm going through it now, and I'm at one of the lowest points in my life, professionally, financially, and personally, and it's part of it is 27 years seems like a blip of when I just got to this town, and I'm feeling the weight of not wanting to go forward into new ways. So we all feel like we all feel like we're Luke when we're sometimes Obi-Wan.
And it's a difficult balance to achieve, and I think that sometimes losing the perspective, and this also happens to people in my age group, because it's not just like a old people go the positive way or old people go the negative way. It's every age group, because I've ranted about this 100 times. Your age group of the Gen Xers that were 20 somethings for the special editions and prequels, like you guys had let's say colorful reactions to the prequels, and that's not really the point I'm making, and many of you have come around, and we're glad to have you. But I want to focus real quick on the people in my age group that went through it, that went through our parents and our older siblings and our teachers and whoever telling us that our stuff was bad and their stuff was good.
Right.
The shitty thing that drives me crazy is that I see people my age now shitting on new Star Wars, and it's like, well, then you've learned nothing. And that's another thing too about this. The thing that you love getting old, SNL, Star Wars, sports, whatever it is, that you need to maintain perspective and internalize the lessons of your experience. Because it's one thing to say like, oh, the prequels got poo-pooed and I never got to have the full fun because of adults. That sucks. Anyway, glad we come around now. That's only one part of it. But can you take that and then pass it forward again? That's the thing that kind of drives me crazy. And that's what I think is cool about SNL 50 is that it was everybody from the 75 cast to the featured players right now that haven't really found their voice yet, or are, because being a featured player in the 50th season has kind of just been like being a glorified extra, not in a bad way, but like, you're getting stepped on by the cameos, you're getting stepped on by the Dana Carvey. Like it's like they're fighting for airtime. You know, I hope season 51 can be like their real debut in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I hope so too.
But seeing them all work together sort of speaks to the idea that like you don't need to, you can give back to the thing that you love. You don't need to just celebrate your own victory. I think a lot of prequel fans are like, glad mine are legit now, and then they just haven't really moved forward, you know.
It's human nature. How many people do we all know that immigrated to this country decades ago and are now going, keep the immigrants out? It's the dark side of human nature. And to see it play out.
Inherently egocentric people, right? And we don't want to we don't want to give back to the things that we love. And oh, I'm glad I said that because it made me think of someone else I wanted to highlight. I'm kind of all over the place. You'll have to forgive me. I'm drinking coffee. I'm off.
Coffee.
I'm just off. I'm drinking my signature coffee that I'm always drinking, but I also like stayed up really late and I didn't wake up until an hour before the show. So just forgive me, y'all.
God bless you.
Thank you. Fred Armisen is somebody that I wanted to highlight for this particular point about generations and everything, because yes, he was on deck to do sketches and he is always great. But Fred Armisen playing the drums for the B-52s and for Devo. It's not just like, oh, isn't it cool that he got to do music because he also has such a big passion for music and is a musician. It's not just, oh, it's cool that he got to do that. But it's like, if you maintain some openness and like vulnerability and nurture friendships, like the things that you love, they don't just give to you, you get to give back to the things that you love.
Absolutely.
As they get old. And I don't know if you have anything like specific that you've ever felt that, because like radio is hard, right? Like we like radio, but like radio is this thing that's like in a constant state of free fall and death. And so it's like giving back to the thing that but like, you know, when people like, I'm wearing the Super Yaki hat from Last Jedi, and it's like, I would imagine that there's a little bit of that too for people that work on Star Wars now, or you know, people that like Buddy from Journey, that's been Journey's lead singer for the last like 20 years, like that, which is again crazy that his run has already been that long as lead singer of Journey. But
if not eclipsed Steve Perry.
maybe, yeah. But it's like you get to actually participate, you know. But if you're bitter and you're like, only mine was, that's never gonna happen for you. You know, you're never gonna get to do whatever your version of playing the drums of the B-52 is.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I try to, what little footprint I had in the digital media world, you know, the influence is gone, or the status is gone, but the influence is not, to those that were there. So I'm happy to connect back into that too, while realizing a lot of it changed, and I couldn't catch up and can't catch up sometimes. Yeah, we all should be so lucky as to drum with Devo in the B-52s.
Yeah, whatever your spiritual drum kit is for whatever. That's your thing. You know, yeah, and I think, you know, we're gonna start winding down here as we approach the hour mark. But like,
sorry. I'm good. Yeah, my guy's not here yet, but we're good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll go until we can't. But yeah, I think as things get old, I think that's part of it too, is acknowledging that things are going to change about it. Like, yeah, the spiritual sense of Fred Armisen getting to do that and what I interpreted it as, but also literally that like the lineups are going to change. People are going to be gone.
Yeah.
Certain people are not going to work on it anymore. Like, I'm not going to pretend to like really, I don't want to say care because I care, but like, I don't want to put myself out there as like a James, like I really am invested in the James Bond franchise. I like it very casually. But there's been a lot of like freaking out about the fact that Amazon has the creative control and that the Broccolis are not going to be the producers anymore. And it's like, or at least creatively. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. But also I feel like nerds particularly, like we've been down this road so many times with like, oh, this person's in charge now. But like, this doesn't faze me anymore. I just don't understand why it's that big of a deal.
Yeah. On that issue, I'm a Daniel Craig Bonder, so that's my stake in it. But it's disappointing, I think, more than anything because of the time we're in and the irony of a Bond villain now having control of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's all going to be bad. And the Broccoli family, her was half brother Michael G. Wilson was already getting ready to step aside. Time's running out. And it's just one of the last family owned, and that's what's kind of sad about it. But hey, in 2012, a lot of people told me, "Oh, how do you feel about a big corporation buying this Star Wars thing?" Like, it could go well. You and I are fans of Rings of Power. Not everyone is. I get that, but I like what they've done with it. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a death sentence for me. I just think people are reacting to in this time when literally we're getting ready to have the farming industry destroyed so that corporations can take it over. The postal service will be destroyed so a corporation can take it over. Corporate air traffic controllers, like it just is one more thing to deal with. But in terms of creativity, I'm open-minded to see what's happened, but I also Bond is lower on my list than it is for other people.
Exactly. Like, yeah, I'm trying to acknowledge that like the thing that I love most in this world, pop culturally, has already been absorbed and was forever ago. And I remember 2012, people immediately telling me, "Oh, Disney's gonna ruin it" and whatever. And some of them made up their minds then and never opened their hearts after that. And that's fine.
Oh. And yeah, Ken Plumb points out something we talked about this last night. James Bond characters in public domain in 10 years. So the Broccolis, this was their chance to cash out maybe for the family going forward, where you were going to have different Bonds anyways.
Yeah. And that's part of it too. And you know, there's always going to be a money motivation. And I think a lot of people expected, you know, SNL 50 to be indicative in some way of the future, but to your point about it feeling like a goodbye, like we didn't even get like a thank you good night from Lorne. He didn't say a goddamn word at any of the specials. He didn't say it at the concert. He didn't say it on the night of.
The best and only way to go out in pro wrestling is on your back, and I have trouble accepting any other way of going out, even if sometimes wrestlers are forced into it. Like, no, we're gonna make you win. Like
Sting.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Sting, like it's case by case for me for sure, but I think there's a little bit of that tradition of like if you're a wrestler. Like, side story: we had our commissioner of Millennium Pro Wrestling when we were wrapping up the 2010-2014 run. We did a whole thing behind his back where we had him get in the ring and him, a man in his 60s, pinned the champion and won the belt. And he was fighting against it and this and that, but we like literally held him down like 10 men in a ring, and he ended as the final champion. A little different. But I think, so all that to say, Lord Michael's not saying a damn word is the way to do it. I actually really respect that he's not going to have a goodbye. He'll probably just be like, that was fun. All right, bye-bye. Like, I absolutely love that about him.
Bobby Moynihan told a story on the press for the 50th where he did an update character that like didn't actually make it to air, and that he did the whole thing at dress and everything, and then Lauren just leaned forward and was like, "Did you get that out of your system?" And that was it. Like, that was the death of the entire character.
That's great.
Lauren, I know we wanted to touch on Lauren. Just as because the other element of this, and this could be our final bit of the conversation, is as the things we love get old, they are of course influenced and shaped and sometimes I would say infected by the real world realities of people's politics and corporate politics. Right now, there is a Pixar television series, Pixar's first TV show out right now, that baseball show that I won't be watching, because we know for a fact that there was a transgender character / storyline. I'm not sure what the length of the arc would have been, that was cut out. And then Disney PR released some bullshit ass statement saying, we think that parents should, you know, be the ones that decide whatever, horseshit. I'm not going to watch it. And that type of stuff has not yet gotten into some other things that we love, but we're going to have to all make some decisions morally as things go on. Lorne Michaels is one of those people who it might be the person who has maintained in his entire run, whether it's true or not, that it is an apolitical, give it equally to both sides, doors always open, never burn a bridge institution. You have been watching it for a long time. Do you even agree with his assessment of his own show as an opening question?
Yeah, well, and what this came out of is there's a biography, I think it is, that's coming out about Lorne.
Biography,
An excerpt was released in which he says the hardest thing to tell all these current generations, I'm paraphrasing a bit, is that this is a nonpartisan show. Doesn't mean we don't have biases. Doesn't mean we don't have our favorites. He does say that. Just says this is, it's not a political show. We're not Samantha Bee. And he particularly picks on Samantha Bee, calls her strident and this and that. And she responded, I think, wonderfully, but also professionally respectful of SNL as an institution. I do agree with him. That's not necessarily something that I want to agree with. I do think the show historically has a sock it to me, sock it to them, both sides kind of vibe. I told you, even though he is definitely, I think he's anti-Trump now, but he's a legacy Republican. The most successful and most famous of the political writers on SNL, James Downey, was a Republican. Adam Sandler, Republican. Jim Brewer, woo. Rob Schneider, woo. But I think, so we look at Al Franken emerging. We look at Davis. We look at the famous Nixon sketch. That was the Downey sketch. And the vibe, I think, was needling more than anything. I grew up in that era. This is why I grew up pretty apolitical, because I wanted to get into comedy. And to me, comedy was you lightly poke fun at Newt Gingrich, and then Chris Farley goes and does it in front of him, and everyone's chummy and laughs. And I think that's more the history and legacy of the show, whether we want to face it or not, than Kate McKinnon singing about Hillary Clinton as Hillary Clinton at a piano. Beautiful moment. We were all hurt, but and it wasn't cringe for me, but like the show never was that. It was more that. And so for him to say that, I think he's right. That doesn't mean think I want it to be that way. I
guess that was more of like my question was not, and to be clear for the listeners and viewers, I'm not asking Ken to make a judgment on whether or not he thinks it should be that. I'm asking, do you think Lorne has achieved what he thinks it is? Has he played fair?
Yeah, I mean, they're willing to put on Tom Hanks as a MAGA trope. That they've been willing to do it. They definitely look. Dennis Miller, forget where he is now. Okay. Dennis Miller was a goddamn rock star. Dennis Miller was a blast of energy that has not been seen at that update desk since. I will maintain that till I die. Not saying he's the best after. There's some great things have come after, but the energy was different. He was the knife. He was a knife in a kitchen drawer. And I remember as a young conservative kid, loving him, but going, he's gone too far for me, right? So I think it's there, but I just, again, overall, Musk and Trump as hosts, that's a whole different thing. Giuliani post 9/11 kind of made sense for the time. Steinbrenner, as a Yankee fan, even bring on Steinbrenner there. But going back, Ed Koch, they had they had Ralph Nader, but also they had the like Nixon's press secretary, didn't like season 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Lorne has always cozied up to power, and I think that's kind of where he's speaking from. Again, this isn't me saying it's right. And I don't know if the show will change. We'll see who comes in next.
Who comes in next? And I think, and just establishing the record, it's like, he has also just had Kamala Harris. He has had Barack Obama. He has had, I think,
Palin.
Even though I don't agree with the idea of both sides thing, I think for the resources that he has and the connections that he has committed to that, for better or worse. And there's lots of quotes coming out in these tell-all books, like Tim Robinson, who obviously is doing incredible stuff on his own, has probably the spiciest one, where it was the Trump hosting one that Robinson was like, Lorne needs to be taken out back and shot. There was a lot of cast tension. I mean, Chloe Feynman, who's one of their stars right now, talking to the press about how Elon Musk made her cry and was disrespectful to the writers and like
But
all
did
this
she
stuff.
pray
Like,
to Xenu? Did she pray to Xenu
but
after that?
look, if you can make my stance on praying to Xenu is, do you make Mission Impossible? And if you do make Mission Impossible, you can pray to Xenu all you want.
Yeah, but look,
So,
man, it goes, yeah, and Andrew Dice Clay, I see, bringing
Dice,
Chappelle
yeah, and like
on, bringing
Chappelle,
people
yeah.
are upset that Shane Gillis is back next week hosting, and I understand why. I can also tell you he's pretty well loved in the industry out here. I can tell you that. So it's a weird mix that I don't think, as long as Lauren's in charge, it's going to remain that way. And whoever
like,
comes after.
the psychology of it, and I wanted to touch on this too, is that these are also human beings, right? And these are also, as we tie it into our overall topic of the things we love getting old, SNL is the thing that Lorne Michaels loves. Not just like in terms of like that it's his creation, but it's also his like identity, right? Like he's put it above pretty much everything. Everyone that's ever been close to him will tell you that he has put it above everything, and that his return to it just decided the rest of his life. And I think, and as much as any truth whatsoever, which is usually not much, but when you look at Jason Reitman interviewed, I think he did about 80 something interviews for the Saturday Night film that they made, and talked to everybody that was there that night and everybody that's been on the crew since that era, and obviously knows Lorne, has met Lorne, and got to be a guest writer there for a week in the 2000s. He makes it a point in his depiction of the man, and this is also somewhat in some of the biography stuff that's coming up, that Lorne is motivated by a fear of change and of things being alone and of people like leaving him, which I think there's an element of like sadness to the character, because Lorne Michaels is a character and has become other characters like Dr. Evil or whatever, but like he is
Mark McKinney and the Kids on Whole Brain Candy.
That's that one I gotta check out. The kids in the Hall specific reference. I've not.
It's not. He's the villain of the movie Brain Candy. Mark McKinney plays him. It's all the way. Yeah,
it's a straight up Lorne.
It's a straight up better than Dr. Evil Lorne. And I love I love the Austin Powers movies. But it's I'm done out loud. I said, it's amazing. Y'all should check it out.
I gotta check it out. No, I definitely will. But like in the movie, they make there's scenes about like, is Rosie Schuster going to be credited as Rosie Schuster or Rosie Michaels? And obviously we know she was not credited as Michaels. She was credited as Schuster. And at one point he says to her like, well, like it's my last name. And she says, no, it's not. Lipowitz. Yeah. She's like, so there's this element of like, he's been creating a guy for so long and adopting these people into his little family of make believe. And it's sort of like, I think that he thinks, my amateur psychoanalysis is that if he takes a harder stance on anything, then he'll be alone. That he'll lose things. Yeah. I think the when he's gone, which hopefully he lives to 100. I don't wish death on anybody that brings people joy for a living, unless that joy is like, the Joe Rogan podcast or something. It's like, I think there's a really interesting psychology to somebody that's like, I will never take a side when you so clearly hire people that do. It's you can tell me you don't, but like, you're going to tell me that the Amy Poehler to now with Jostin Che era update does not lean left. You're going to honestly try to tell me that, Lauren?
Right.
Honestly, like you're going to tell me that Bowen Yang and Sarah Sherman and some of your recent players don't lean? Get the fuck out of here. Like that's the thing, is that he's saying things for him, but he's also doing other things. And sometimes he radically tries to balance those with a stupid decision, like picking some of these hosts that I think we all agree are not just bad comedically, but bad socially and politically and ethically. But it's like, I also don't see that as like, he thinks both sides are the same. Like, I don't think that Lorne Michaels, the Jewish man who's very well aware of his history, is cool with Steve Bannon and Kanye. Like, I don't think that, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that Lorne Michaels might be too afraid to ever leave the castle that he has built at 30 Rock because it's a safe place for him. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, that's the thing with Power and crafting and the power games he plays, making you wait for 2 hours before meetings and all the stories that you hear and everything about it. I don't know if he's softened in the age. I don't know. He pees like the rest of us. I do have a friend who peed next to him at 30 Rock. Great story. Yeah, and I think and the biggest thing I think that's a cop out for some of his decisions is looking at SNL correctly as a time capsule for the era. When you look back on the music and the sketches and some of the, you watch an episode from 1991, it's not as funny as you remember it because you're not in 1991 anymore. So I think he uses that like, oh, I'm not making a statement. I'm just someone's hosting that's representative of the time. And I think that is no longer an era we're in. It's you're talking about the cast, which is. We know more of their politics off screen than we ever did in the past, right?
That's true too. They have podcasts, their social media. I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, but like, let's say the '90s cast, right? The '90s cast, like, they still took bookings, they still did stand up, they obviously had films, but like, you couldn't go to like Sandler's Instagram and find out like what he thought, about whatever.
Yeah, and probably was asked less. You know what I mean? Like, you're now on a red carpet, you're asked those things, and I don't have a problem with that, by the way. But and clearly, Force Center. Wait till Force Center starts reviewing Andor season 2, folks. If you're not clear on who we are now, wait to the show. But yeah, and that's where I don't know if Lorne's adjusted to that, but he feels he can control that. Even the statement of the hardest thing to explain to the younger generation is the show isn't this. So who comes along after that and changes that? We'll see. But I think part of the thing too with the show is, again, it is viewed as political, but it was like it was toothless in a way, right? Not all of it, but it had an effect. When you think of Al Gore, you might think of Inconvenient Truth, you might think of a lot of other things, but you're also going to think of a character being like lockbox. That stuff permeated our own reality. I think and made George Herbert Walker Bush fun and lovable. That was part of that's always going to be the show's legacy, and I don't think that's good.
And I think that,
but it's
for a more modern example, I think that there are people in this country, to their detriment, who think that the Alec Baldwin Trump is the man. I think that they think that is what he's like, and he is in many ways. But like, because he was a consistent source of laughter, laughing at him, laughing at that pathetic character, that they don't then take the threat seriously. So there's that, and but again, it's like, it's always what Lorne is saying versus what he's doing. Because if he really stuck to what he says, he wouldn't have fired Shane Gillis before Shane Gillis even started, right?
Well, but he claims now that it wasn't his choice, right?
Oh, okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, that came out last year that he said, if I had my way, I wouldn't have fired him. I was forced to.
The network. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Ken Plume says that the movie changed it, that she's credited as Michael's in the first episode. Okay. Well, I like the movie version better then. I think it's a better point about Lorne. I think it makes Lorne's psychology more apparent. The movie's very good, everyone. You should all watch the movie. It's on Netflix.
I'm gonna watch it.
Gillis hosting. Looking at anything here. Yeah, and I think, to your point too about just like overall, like what the next person will do, which again, there were people going into the 50th that were like, are we going to find out who's going to take over us? I don't think we're going to find out until Lorne is dead.
It's going to be in the will reading.
Yeah, I think Lorne would rather die in 8H than have a goodbye, and like, he would rather die on air and let it be on update.
Absolutely, and I think he's squeakier and clean than a Vinny K, and that was the only way we're going to get Vincent Kennedy out of WWE, was the way it happened. So
for sure. So,
that's
but for the future, I guess, last question here for you. The thing you love is getting old, whatever it is. SNL, we're thinking like, okay, like, does the next person, if it's Tina Fey, if it's whoever, who knows? But like, will they maintain Lauren's philosophy? That's not the question I have for you. My question is, how important is it to you that the philosophy of anything get maintained? I think, or does it depend on what it is? I think both of us would agree it is important. You know, if 30 years from now, Kathleen Kennedy is in her 90s, Kathleen Kennedy might be in her hundreds and 30
She's in
years.
her 70s. Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind. Maybe 30 is a little bit, whatever. You know, Dave Filoni retired, Carrie Beck retired. Like, how important is it to you that down the road, everybody's looking back and saying the philosophy must be consistent?
It's important in terms of Star Wars. It's very important. It's very
right,
important.
And it kind of feels like it depends on the property, right?
Yeah, depends on the property. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something I look for. That's also kind of why we came up with the term emotional canon on Force Center. Not about politics, but just about like, no, the through line for the last 40 years is the same on these things, these characters and what you're trying to tell with this art. But yeah, I think it's important. But Saturday Night Live used to be a hammer to the culture. Now it is the culture, and I do not think you'll ever get that change. Now it has become what it is, and whoever steps in, the biggest thing to look for, similar to the day that eventually Kathleen Kennedy retires. There is a clout that she has within this business. Lorne Michaels has some of the biggest clout this business has ever seen. Once that is gone and that shield is gone, who is going to be able to shield the show from the network, from the advertisers, and as best as Lorne could? And we've seen examples where he couldn't shield, whether we agree with it or not, the Gillis thing, but McDonald thing, whatever, or the firings of all casts or everything like that. He's had to bend the knee at some points, but not a lot, and not a lot in these last few years. But whoever comes in is not going to have that clout. Yeah. Whoever comes in after Kathleen Kennedy is not going to have the 40, 50 years of studio experience. They might be talented. They might be this. That's why her air replacement isn't going to be Carrie Beck and someone like that could step into the role, but Favreau is not going to step into the role. But like, it's got to be someone like that, and we don't have a lot of those people anymore.
That's such a good point, man. That's such the clout thing, because normally when I use the word clout, it's to insult Twitter people, but like it really is, like, in the truest sense of the word. Like, I remember in one of the documentaries, maybe it was the writing one, that John Mulaney is talking about how the cool thing about being a young writer on SNL is that for 5 minutes once a week you control NBC, and it's like whenever they would get any blowback, they'd be like, well, Lauren said we could, and that would be the end of it. That would go away. That ability for any of them, even a Tina Fey or somebody that has 20, 30 years at this point in her career, Tina said we could is not going to fly in the way that Lauren said we could.
Tina didn't make them billions. Tina didn't make careers, and now
it's not just we're just using her. We're just using her name, but like,
yeah, we're just using her name. But like,
like
I think people, you know, the power Michaels had coming off of SNL was great, and then he lost a little bit. He had to come back to save his show, but you know, his new show called The New Show wasn't working. The movies he was producing, Love, Three Amigos, and everything, but like he had to come back. But then he built this empire and has built this comedy industry. It's built on him, and he's a godfather. He's a godfather, and we won't have that again.
I mean, just look at like what he was able to organize for this weekend, like the people that made 72 hours available.
You have shots where you're looking at De Niro and Spielberg, and they're all just sitting there laughing, watching a show. And this was the 40th, and this was the other ones too, but I just could not.
Jack Nicholson made an appearance.
Yeah, and that was a Sandler thing, I'm sure, which was great. But yeah, you know, it's mind blowing, and it's all around this show, and essentially it is truly all around this one man, which is unbelievable, and power to have, and that can corrupt, and that can erode who you are.
And I think that, you know, as the things that we love get old, part of it too is that so few of them, whether it's the Broccolis with 007 or Lauren with this, like, so few of them have the original creator or the original steward still involved. Like, nobody that ran Marvel Comics for a long time is at Marvel Comics. None of them. Not even the editors from when I became a big reader, like Axel Alonso or Casada. Like, A lot of them are retired, dead, gone, doing their own things. This is obviously not the case with George Lucas. It is obviously not the case with. There might be one Roddenberry that produces. I think does his son still produce? Someone tell me in the comments on Star Trek.
Is there a Scott? Is there a Scott around? I don't know.
But yeah, it's like we are at that point now where almost all of these things, there's no one still running their thing.
Yeah, it's that I'm thinking of. It's so funny. The big New York Yankees fan, and for years George Steinbrenner ran that team like a tyrant, good and bad. He did a lot of great things. He did a lot of horrible things. But he's dead. His sons run it, and it's not the same. It's not the same, and we don't have those kind of personalities anymore, which might be okay. But the danger is it's those 4 or 5 billionaires who step in, right? Like that's the worry that's in the bigger picture of life. But anyways, it's fascinating.
I pledge to run all knapsack businesses and brands after Ken's demise with the most Kenness that I can possibly.
Just put it all into a boat, send it down the LA River when it's rainy. Brendan Blackfish.
The Blackfish, yeah. Hopefully not the Edmure.
Not the Edmure.
Times. God, that's so funny.
Remember, my philosophy is to go out on my back. Well, there you go. That's the way to do it.
You've already done more than enough to put us over. By us, I mean me and several others.
I am, I am the Terry Funk of your ECW. I'm happy to do it. This brings our conversation to a close because, I gotta turn off the electricity in my house and get some work done. But we appreciate you listening. Great conversation. Thank you, buddy, as always, for taking us through something that's more than just a beat by beat, and then Eddie Murphy said, and then Will Forte said, and then this and that. But we'll be back next week as we keep going forward. Thank you for those that we had some super chats. At least one, highlight those. Is there Jared, the TIE pilot? Alden, you see Ken's pick of his Trial of 7. Yeah, yesterday on the Blathering, Jared called in with a question. I picked my team of 6 with one alternate for the combat by trial. We got to do that ourselves too. JMB, thank you for the super chat, and I'm happy I remind you that all of us, of our generation, are a-holes, and all you remember that our future should be all right. There you go.
God, I hope
it's gonna be all right. There you go. We did it. All
right, my friends.
Final words from me. Have a good weekend. Final words from you.
I hope you got that out of your system.
Come back with my show.